I don't have to put it in there. Yeah. Turkey and some.
They're working on a new design.
Okay, yeah.
Is the conference proposed?
Thank you.
I don't see you. Yeah.
They're waiting by the Been to the beach?
Went down Friday, came back today. Testing. Jason.
Jamel Unley, who studied mathematics in college, adding one more number.
Very good.
I know.
We know what y'all do. Sounds always like.
Yeah, that'd be fine. You can cut it off. I think Whit's at the meeting.
Good evening, Mr. Johnston.
Are we expecting Betty and Bob?
Benny and Bob.
Good evening, Betty.
Good evening, Carol.
Hello, Betty.
Hello, Benny.
Hi.
Hello, Bob.
Say Johnson. We've got a lot of people calling in, I know that these reports.
It's already on, I don't know how many it's
I
on
know.
YouTube. Call, yeah.
Well, it's 7 o'clock and I'm assuming we've got a quorum. Is Carol present?
I'm ready to on. It is,
Hello?
Mr. Chairman, they said.
Carol,
7 o'clock.
are you there?
Monday.
This conference will now be recorded.
Carol,
Bob, Carol's ready to go ahead and begin.
I'd like to call to order this May 4th, 2020 Scott County Board of Commissioners to order. And I, at this time, am prepared to offer an invitation. The Board of Commissioners comes together in your presence, dear God, to conduct the business of Scott County. While we give thanks to you this beautiful day, we also thank you for the privilege of serving our fellow citizens. We know fully that we are serving our community in the most challenging times, and that the uncertainty we all are facing is confusing and frightening. We pray for the safety of us all, and pray for your guidance and strength to sustain us as we manage the coming days, weeks, and possibly months. It is our desire to make all our decisions to be in the best interest of all citizens. Please give us the wisdom to be faithful to our duties. We pray all this in your holy name. Amen. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
For the United States of America,
For which it stands, one nation,
a nation, under God, indivisible,
justice.
liberty and justice for all.
Just for a point of reference, for those citizens and other staff that are calling in, I am conducting the meeting at the request of Chairman Davis, but he is with us virtually. If that's the right word. At this time, I'll ask for approval of the agenda.
so move. Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The next item is our public forum. Is there anyone that wishes to speak? Do we know of anyone that wanted to speak in the public forum?
Greg Wood made a request, or Greg Wood is here to,
So you want to speak this time?
yes.
I didn't know where Greg was going to be on the agenda.
Mr. Vice Chairman, if you could remind all those on here, they're not speaking to mute their mic because it's going to lead over feedback.
Request for those who are speaking to mute your mic, it makes, our audio, better. And I think we have Mr. Wood, the CEO of Scotland Health System, ready to make a, report to us tonight. Good evening, Greg.
Thank you, Karen. Thanks to us, the county commissioners, for letting me speak to you again. A lot of this is muffled. I think you got a lot of folks not on mute, so I hope can you hear me okay?
Yes.
You can. Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Good, terrific. Well, again, thank you for the opportunity to come back tonight. Whit called me Friday and asked me to come, so I'm just going to talk about a couple of things briefly, and then I'll be glad to answer any questions. So one, thank you for what you did last month. You passed that resolution, you got it out there, and I know some of you have been out there doing your own thing, using that bully pulpit. I know Chairman Davis did his thing, and we appreciate that very much. And I'm here to tell you with good news, despite what we sometimes see at some of the box stores around here, we feel very good about what's going on in our community. It really does seem to be flattening. We continue to look at models on a regular basis, and the models show us really starting to plateau early in June, but at the most for the community as well as for the healthcare system, we don't think we'll anticipate seeing anything other than what we can handle ourselves here at the healthcare system. We think at the most over time, we'll only have about 100 admissions. We think the most a hospital will see is a maximum of about 15 patients inside a hospital. The modeling shows that we'll probably anticipate maybe 10 to 25 deaths total in the county, certainly a little bit more from that from the region. You'll likely see in tomorrow's media releases, we did have our first death. We'll tell you more about that in a release in the morning. So we feel real good about what the community's been doing. If you've been paying attention, Richmond County and Marlborough County is about twice of what we are. Robinson County really is having it bad. They've got about 300 cases out there, a lot of them coming our way, but they've had about 300 positive cases, and we've had 70 total positive cases. And only 5 or 6 admissions total inside the hospital. So we feel very good about that. So we want to thank the community and everybody that's out there pushing for social distancing. Hopefully you've seen the literature that based on our ability to handle that surge, we have begun effective today offering some more services. We stopped services 6 weeks ago for several reasons. One, we wanted to promote social distancing and not have community spread. 2, we want to see if we have enough space available, equipment available, and testing available for an impending surge. With the decrease in expected surge, we now feel comfortable and confident that we absolutely have the space, we have the staff, and we can now do testing with rapid turnaround times to test anybody that's suspicious or anybody that's having any procedures. So we feel very good about that. We also haven't seen any external spiking that would allow us to worry about that. So we have started expanding services here at the hospital and in our ambulatory practices, telephone, virtual, and cases within the practices. We are treating patients in their cars if they're very sick. We're starting to see an awful lot of patients that have delayed care, delayed cardiac care, delayed respiratory care, and by the time they get to us, they're a lot sicker than they need to be. So we're encouraging people, if you delayed care out of fear, the healthcare system is as safe as it's ever. We have everybody's being masked. We still have access control. No visitors are being allowed. And we have adequate testing. And we're actually cordoning off some of our facilities. People are coming in the back door for surgery, and they're not neither the surgical staff nor patients are leaving that area. We have a couple floors blocked off. Non-COVID patients are going to one floor. Suspected COVID patients are going to another floor. So we're right now, the hospital is as safe as it's ever been. We are ready for anything that may come our way over the next few months. That said, we've also got a lot of triggers in place. If something changes related to internal issues related to equipment, or externally we have a sudden spike that we didn't expect, we could shut that down where we've been. So again, we feel very good about where we are. We appreciate what the community's doing. We certainly want to thank all the support we've got from the community over the last 6 weeks. And interestingly, this being National Nursing Week and National Hospital Week, it really is a neat time to thank all the heroes on the front lines and have been doing what they've been doing. And, interestingly, the theme this year for National Hospital Week is health comes first. And I think we've done that. So I just want to close with the message that I've continued to put out there that as we begin to open up a little bit here and there, we need to maintain that social distancing behaviors that allow us to keep our community safe and still begin to resurrect the economy. That said, I'll be glad to answer any questions or take any feedback that you have for me.
Anybody have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes,
You said that most likely we will see a spike the 1st of June. Is that what you said?
What I said, the model shows, Betty, that we will plateau around early June. That'll be the highest it's ever get. It's just going to climb a little bit more than it currently is. We expect that, on the hospital side, we're looking at somewhere around a high of 15 patients inside the hospital. It could run anywhere from 10 to 25 patients total in the hospital. It's more of a plateau that's beginning to right now. Plateauing up to the highest in June, and by the end of August, at least for phase 1, we expect we'll be back down to almost zero.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Greg, I've seen numbers that the Scotland Healthcare Center puts out with the number of positive cases. And sometimes when I look at the state statistics, it's showing a lower number for Scotland County. Is that because you're testing people here that are actually living in surrounding counties?
Yeah, absolutely, Whit. So again, Scotland County data shows about 30 cases, I think, for the county, and we're showing 69 as of this morning. And from a strategic standpoint, we get an awful lot of business coming out of Marlborough County and Western Provincetown County out of the Pembroke area. So we're a lot of our positive cases are coming out of Robinson County, more so even than Marlborough, probably even more so than Scotland County. What I heard from Robinson County folks this morning was they expect to be at about 300 positive cases, even though the North Carolina website shows about 225. They're just so far behind in getting the data up to the state.
Greg, this is Bob Davis. I have a question. The report that I look at that goes to Raleigh every day, how many we've got, and it says, like patient 1, 2, or whatever it happens to be, has gone back to work or whatever. And will those come off of the number that we have, or will they just stay in there?
Well, what you see is a couple different numbers, Bob, at the state level. They said so many tested and so many positive. And that's one of the things we're trying to do on our website. We're showing how many total patients we discharged, which as of this morning was 8. We have 5 in the hospital. So it's 5 in at the present time, but 8 in total. And let's see. So we've had 69 positive cases. Most of those have come to the emergency center. They test positive, we send them home to isolate. So some of those numbers will come off some sets of data, but they'll be on other total numbers. When you're seeing on the state, they say how many tested in total and how many total positive. But in 14 days, they'll be back at work or they'll be back home after they've finished isolating.
Okay, and thank you for what y'all are doing. I know it's a trying time for all of us.
But we appreciate the support. And again, it's the people on the front lines who, talk about doing something scary every day. Those nurses and those providers and the respiratory therapists, they come in every day and they gown up. Again, we've got 5 COVID patients in, and they just willingly and professionally come in and do what they were trained to do.
Greg, have y'all ever had difficulty coming up with the personal protective equipment?
We have initially, but we've been very fortunate. Our Atrium relationship helps a lot, and we've got some really good people in purchasing who've been able to find a lot of different things. We have bumped into, interestingly enough, with early on, we had a couple of things that came in and they were not right. They were labeled miscorrectly, or they came off the back, so to speak. So we had a couple of things we've had to send back, but we've been able to find everything we need, from the N95s to the regular masks, the cloth masks. So what we're doing for everybody who doesn't come into contact with patients directly, they can wear those cloth masks, or they can wear painter's masks. We've had a lot of friends out there who brought in a lot of things, such as painter's masks and a lot of cloth masks for people like me until I go see a patient. So yeah, we feel very good that unless we have a surge, we have sufficient protective equipment to handle the patients that are going to come in for the next couple of months.
Greg, may I ask you another question?
Yes, ma'am.
Would would you, or are you encouraging people from Scotland County to wear masks? Because we have the influx of South Carolina, open up their borders, like you say, Robertson County, and they are constantly, in and out of our county. Do you encourage our people to wear masks?
Absolutely, Betty. Wearing a mask, even cloth masks, means you're not giving it to somebody else. So if you don't care about yourself, think about your friend or your neighbor or that storekeeper. So absolutely, we're encouraging people to wear masks when they come anywhere near anyone else. In fact, we started that today. We got universal masking everywhere. Anytime we're not in our office, anytime we're wandering the halls, I'm wearing a mask. I visit patients a lot, so I'm wearing a surgical mask just in case I'm near a patient. But cloth masks keep you from spreading it to somebody else. So again, there's a lot of data out there. One person wearing a mask, that's somewhat effective. Both people wearing a mask, extremely effective. So I doubt the county's going to pass anything. I doubt the state's going to pass anything, but I sure hope folks will be very strongly encouraged to wear masks when they're in public spaces.
Thank you.
Greg, I don't pretend to speak for the board, but I believe all of us would like to express to you just our appreciation for coming on tonight and continuing to provide the public with as much information as possible about what's going on. And please extend our gratitude to your staff and particularly to the frontline workers for all they're doing in a terribly difficult time. We do appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Ed. I believe we've earned the trust of the community because we're as transparent as we can. When we have a death, we're going to share that as well. When we get something wrong, we're going to share that. But I hope now the community trusts us to say we're as safe as we've ever been. If you've been delaying care, don't take that risk. Call your physician and decide if you really need to come in and see them, or if they're putting off a procedure that's getting pretty risky. Talk to your physician and come on in and get that treatment.
Okay.
If no one else has any questions, Greg, again, thank you for your presence, and we'll probably see you again next month for an update.
Correct. Thanks for y'all's leadership as well.
Thank you, Greg.
Is there anyone else that's going to speak up in the public forum? No. All right, we'll move on then. We had already approved the agenda, so the next item on the agenda is number 2, aging services, and we have, I'll let you take it from here. Yeah, we
No, we did the whole, we did put on the consent.
We did vote.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go back to vote on the agenda. We had a motion to approve, second. All those in favor say aye.
Carol, I think what we've done is we've already approved the agenda. We voted on that.
Yeah.
I think we now need a motion to approve the consent agendas.
I'm sorry. I haven't done this in a while.
Okay, and if I may, but I'm going to say this to Jason for us to get us on track. I believe that if we're having this meeting and we vote, we can vote verbally, but we have to make sure we have to do a roll call vote for them.
We have,
A motion for the consent agenda. And I'll second.
we do have a motion in a second. I'll ask all those to approve, say aye.
Aye.
And then, verbal response from Bob or Betty.
Aye.
I think we need to-
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The consent agenda is approved. Sorry for that confusion. Our next item is the aging services report, and Kevin, I know you're gonna report that. Is Paula Allen with us tonight?
Tyler, what sent me information? Hold on. She might be one of the callers.
Okay.
I can mute everybody, I just can't unmute.
I think it's star panel 6 or whatever, panel 6 to get off mute. So while it's there, that's the way to do it.
But with this Aging Advisory Council, they receive the Home Care Community Block Grant annually. Part of that contract is for in-home aid services, and they go out for contract on those services every other year. have gone out for services, and the contracts are very, you have a copy of the bid tab in the sheet. And someone who qualifies for services, they qualify for level 1, 2, or 3 services. One is closer to like housekeeping, small things making it possible for someone to help stay in the house, up to level 3, which is significant care short of actual medical care. Helping administer medicines and things like that would be involved, as well as bathing and things, but it's significant level of care. The 3 bidders, there were 6 bidders, I think 6 bidders that had applied, but only 3 were qualified. The ones that were not qualified did not submit a completed package. The 3 that did submit a package were Interim Healthcare, Brayata, and Carolina Hearts. Interim Healthcare was our previous provider for a number of years. Brayata is our current provider. They got the contract 2 years ago. It was low bid. Carolina Hearts, actually, they have contract services that they provide with the COG for other activities. So the COG has experiences with each of these companies. They're all more than capable of providing level of care. And with it, the apparent low bidder for it is Interim Healthcare.
I have a question, Greg.
The memorandum on the last line says they would assist in facilitating transition of crews, so it must not be the same one.
No, it is currently Brayata, but the low bidder is Interim.
And the next question is, are we bound to take the lowest bid?
Yeah, with it, you generally take the lowest qualified bidder. If there is a reason to distinguish between the bids outside of price, you can take that into account.
Such as located.
If that significantly impacts service, yes, sir.
So we do need action on this tonight.
Yes. Now, this is for next fiscal year, but this way, if we go ahead and approve it, the companies can go ahead and begin their transition process.
When you say next fiscal year, you're talking about?
July 1.
This
This
year.
Yes, in 2 months.
Well, the top of this thing says bids for Scotland County NMA program levels 1, 2, and 3 fiscal year 21-22.
It's fiscal years 21 and fiscal years 22.
Fiscal years in 20.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Kevin,
Yes, sir.
may I make a comment or ask a question? If you look at all of them, you get conflicting numbers and the amount of dollars that was spent in Scotland County. And it doesn't seem to me that we're getting all that we ought to get if you look at all the numbers. And it just bothers me that we are tied to something that we send our dollars into another county, and the folks that are here that are investing in our county, it just, I don't know, it just bothers me that we can't do something more than just send our dollars to Bladen County.
that's one thing about it with this. I know two of these providers are not domiciled in Scotland County. Their offices or their primary office is not here. But the funds that are spent for providing services are to Scotland County residents.
I know we got a letter from, I believe, the director of the Carolina Hearts, and it made the statement that the money they were quoting, I think, some third quarter numbers of 51 and 54% being spent. And I'm looking at a different set of numbers that's now showing that the amount of funds expected to be spent is 102%.
Well,
Uh,
I'm reading that correctly?
Well, I sent out, because there were questions, I got information. The one that shows the one that has the third quarter and has 51 and 54%, that is current year.
Right.
The other set was actually for 2019 year. So that was the end of results from last fiscal year as of June 30. So the program actually spent 102% of the allocation for last fiscal year. Now, with that, this board approves the CDB, approves the block grant. So with that, there are allocations that the Aging Advisory Council makes can make adjustments between moving those dollars. Like they budget for so many slots for adult daycare. They generally do not use those. So at the end of towards the end of the year, probably when they have their meeting this month, they're going to move funds from those to other programs. So, they have, last year they spent a total of 102% of the funds that were allocated, which is, from speaking with Swiley, adequate. Right now, in third quarter, they spent 51%, 54% on level 1 and level 2 care. But right now, into level 3, they've spent 104% of the level 3 dollars. So, and now also with COVID, you have people who, especially in that level 1 category, who may not want to continue receiving those benefits. They had the conversation, should we go in and bring people in? The decision was made by the Aging Advisory Council to go off and actually go back and find people in that level 2 and level 3 categories to find if there are additional services that they need, especially in those level 3 at this point in time. Level 3s are going to be your highly successful. They may not be able to get that family support right now. So if they can do that for a short amount of time, rather than putting somebody on for the next 2 to 3 months, when that other person who was previously qualified is now accepting services.
Kevin, may I ask another question? How do you account for one of the sets of numbers that I saw showed 51%. Another one showed 102%. How do you reconcile that difference?
The 51% is the level 1 care as of March of this year. The 102% is the total spend for the program for all 12 months of last year.
For all 3 levels.
For all 3 levels.
I think that's important to understand.
It seems to me that it would be important to have confidence that they're going to spend all of the money allocated to be spent in Scotland County. We don't want them to get a bid and at the end of the year, they're going to spend 80% of the money. So to me, if we have confidence that they're going to do that, I think that's something we have to have. The second thing, and I don't know how to ask, I don't know whether it's appropriate to ask this question, and that is, there are workers coming into this county, obviously, to provide services, and I would hope that some of the employees that are providing services to Scotland County residents actually live in Scotland County. And it would mean something to me if the company we're giving this contract to, all of their people live in another county and travel here to provide that service. Our people are being serviced, but there's jobs that we're not getting.
Right.
And so I would like to know, maybe from the three companies, what their staffing pattern is and what percentage of most of these, all three companies, I think, serve multiple counties, anywhere
Yes.
8 to 15. And if they have no employees in Scotland County, but it doesn't matter, whichever one may have, 15% of its workforce lives in Scotland County, nobody else does. I think that's a consideration we all make.
Can we get that information? Would it be appropriate for us to ask, these are private companies, and we're asking employer data, so I agree with you, I've applied for us to have a job, I'm not sure that we can.
That is not part of the bid package, so we do not have that information.
We don't have that information. Can we ask that question?
You can ask the question.
You can ask anything you want. Yeah, you can ask.
I began this conversation with, I'm probably not allowed to ask this question.
Yeah. The flip side to that is if that is how good of a legal determination that would be as far as awarding the bid ultimately. Because the way I see the bid rules, and first of all, I agree with you. If one of these had 100% Scotland County, I would be happily to do this, or there was a significant difference.
Well, I didn't know that one of the companies has a headquarters here.
Yes.
And that has to mean something.
And I think that company, we just offered an incentive package to expand.
Yes.
And you're talking about a 97-cent difference.
I know.
So
I would like that question to be asked to the,
It would go to Twyla.
yeah, to ask her.
Okay. What the board can do, the board can table this until a budget meeting or until the June meeting. And we can have Aging Advisory Council ask the question of all three qualified veterans.
and maybe we can answer that on the legal side as we ask the question, but not demand an answer. Does that make sense? You know what I mean?
I know what you're doing.
Well, during that
If
time.
nothing else, maybe asking the question may communicate
Kevin?
that we have a desire for them to employ Scotland County people, that they're gonna get money, take care of Scotland County residents.
Kevin,
I think it's a good question, I think it's a fair question.
Kevin.
Do we need a motion?
Bob.
Go ahead, Bob.
Kevin, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
You mentioned at one time or another, about tabling this. Would it be possible to table this until our next meeting?
Yes,
And maybe
sir.
we could all sit down and look at each other and have all the numbers in front of us.
We can table this until the budget meeting, one of the budget work sessions. And that will give additional time to get information, and also we can do some fact finding on what would be a qualifying condition.
Should I put that in the form of a motion or just
Yes,
by
sir.
by consensus or something?
You said the word motion, so that's your motion, I'm gonna ask for a second.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second for tabling this item. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. Okay, the next item is the Scotland County City of Marlboro Crime and Drug Committee request. Brian Gibson, are you with us tonight?
I am, thank you.
It's good to have you, Brian. Go ahead.
Thank you for having me. Okay, if I can go ahead and start. I sent in some information after one of our meetings about the use of some cameras that are for surveillance and crime detection and other things. You should have this information. Maybe I haven't had a chance to read it, but I'd be happy to answer any questions after or explain now in a little bit of detail. But during one of our crime and drug meetings, we discussed the camera usage with, in particular, the city of Laurinburg with the cameras they have. And we talked about some of their successes, and it come to our attention that the county or the sheriff's office did not have any cameras like that or similar to. The cameras can be used for multiple reasons, from officer safety during a drug investigation or right before. A search warrant is done for drugs, for example. If during investigation the drugs have been purchased from a residence with a court order and approval from the court, the sheriff's office would be able to take one of those cameras and place it out near the place where there's drug activity, where there's known drug activity. And just, let's say they want to go do a search warrant, it would give them eyes on scene before they actually got there, let them know what kind of situation they're going into. That's just one small example of, from a safety reason, why it would work really well. In other cases where it could be beneficial would be in an area where you've had a lot of thefts. There's been a rash of vehicle break-ins or even home break-ins or burglaries and things of that sort. Again, with the consent of the court or the property owner, these cameras could be placed in those areas to give the sheriff's office some eyes on scene when they can't be there. These cameras will allow for them to view from quite a distance away. They could actually, depending on the camera that they would want to go with, there are cameras that allow people to access them via the internet. It's cloud-based. It's very secure. And 100 miles away, it wouldn't be a problem to zoom in with that camera, record, take snapshots, do other things. The camera that the city has, they're called Tsunami cameras. I think they run off the cell data, have to get up close to kind of downloading those things. So with the city owns the majority of the utility poles. So the court order's on as necessary there, and they can just get consent from the city. If it's owned by Duke or Lumber River EMC or someone like that, consent of the court would have to be done, a search warrant would be done. But these cameras, they kind of vary in cost, and depending on what your need is and what you're looking for, they can go from $2,000 and up per camera. One that we have access to that with the agency I work for, it was around $8,000, but that camera we can sit there from 100 miles away or so and access on our computer and zoom in. And the good thing about it is, if you open up a feed on it, it limits the access, so it would be secure. No one else will be able to see that except that person who's logged in and anyone else they allow. So it's pretty secure there from the legal standpoint. On the research I've done with the knowledge base, also the only time I've seen a law enforcement agency get in trouble with that is when they didn't have the court consent and they went up on a pole to watch a residence and they didn't have the court consent. That's the only time with the format order or search warrant. That's the only time I've seen them on case law get in some trouble. If from the liability standpoint, it would be limited if all of the right procedures are followed. But when the Crime and Drug Committee discussed it, we talked with the city of Laurinburg and the police department about some of the things they've done with theirs. And they've had some successes with theirs. They've had some cases that have worked out with theirs. Some of their cameras have captured some crimes as they occurred. It's very beneficial. Just have to be placed in the right area at the right time. But it's very beneficial. As a matter of fact, they originally started out with 2 or 3, and then they upped it last year. They went to I think 8 or 10. I think they're total around a dozen cameras now. So with having multiple cameras, it allows you obviously to be more places than once. One camera, if it's being utilized somewhere and you need it somewhere else, obviously you're gonna be limited. So that's why in my recommendation, we kind of asked to, what the sheriff's office need would be. They know that need better than us, but from a financial standpoint, we know it's a budgeted item. The board, we discussed it, and we would ask that it would be considered by the commissioners to. We really think that it would benefit the citizens of our county, and it would aid and assist the sheriff's office in the job that they do for sure.
Brian, I know you said it had to have a warrant, put it up on a pole. Who actually puts it up there?
Yes, we have a contracted crew with the place we purchased our cameras from with my agency, and once we get our consent, this person will actually come out and do the install. Now, what the power companies have done in the past with us and other agencies is, if they know you're going to be there for an extended period of time, they'll go ahead and run you a feed down there, so your battery life can be preserved, and they'll put power on it for the law enforcement agency.
Now, Brian, who makes the request for the court order? The law enforcement agency?
Yes. What the law enforcement agency would have to do is like any other request. They would have to establish the probable cause and go before the magistrate or judge, and probable cause be issued for them before that warrant would be issued. So they can't just I'm trying not to use the word willy-nilly, but that's the one that comes to mind. They can't just say, hey, let's go watch this house here just because we've had several calls or complaints. There would have to be a court order, unless it's county owned, for example. If you want to put it on your water tower, it's kind of a ways up, but depending on what kind of camera you get, you could approve that. But this Duke or Lumber River or City of Laurinburg even or something like that, they would need that consent or a court order.
Right. I remember when the city started this, it seems like it's been, several years, 5, 6, maybe 8 years or so when they started it. They originally had a little problem with vandalism. Has that been an issue that you know of?
Not that I'm aware of. I can tell you the type of camera, that tsunami camera, it works well, but it's very noticeable. For example, if you're riding down the street, it's a gray box, and it actually has 3 or 4 of the black dome cameras mounted on each side and the bottom. So we know what that is. There are cameras out there that are hidden inside of boxes that are designed to kind of look like, I try to send a few examples as well, but there's some that look like transformers. There's some that look like a disconnect or utility box, and you can't see the camera. And there are times, you want people to know their camera in places. For example, when I talked to some police officers, they said, yeah, we put that camera up at this particular intersection because we had so many problems, and it stopped the problems. They might have moved down the street, but we know where they're at, and they know we're watching. So when you're limited with personnel, it certainly helps when you can, especially at night when there's 3 or 4 deputies on the road, and they're trying to cover night shift, and there's an area where they've had some problems. It would certainly help if there would be a camera or two somewhere to help kind of watch out too. They could check in every now and again and just watch things and check them.
Thank you, Brian.
Anybody else have questions for Brian? I have one for Kevin. Do you have the sheriff's budget? Yeah.
Yes,
Has he included a request for cameras in his budget?
it's not in there, but with all the other budget concerns in here, his budget's like everybody else's is minimal. Yes.
Anybody else?
Well, I think it would be appropriate for us to consider this request as we review that budget.
Take the time to do it. We'll do that later this month.
Yes.
Brian, thank you. That was an excellent report. You've done a lot of research, and what we had in our board packet was very helpful as well. We will keep you posted on how this develops.
Thank you, and if y'all have any more questions, just feel free to call me or email me, and I'll be happy to come back and answer some more questions or talk again.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have Scott County Tourism Development Authority request for use TA directory with us, Corey.
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you.
I've got a little bit of distortion, so I'm sort of shoved down in the basement, so hopefully y'all can hear me pretty well. So thank you for having me today. My name is Corey Hughes, as most of you know, Executive Director of the Scotland County Tourism Development Authority. And I know the commissioners have an overview that I sent for review. But if you give me a few minutes, I'll provide just a little bit more background to those that may not have that information in front of them. I fortunately have been asked to participate in a series of research and roundtables with Whit Tuttle and the folks at Visit NC. So I'm going to use that as a context as I lay some things out. And then at the end, I do have a little bit of glimmer of hope that I can give you from some research that gives a little bit of what's going to be like as we come out of this situation. Everyone's been hit by, obviously, the virus. The hospitality industry has been especially hard hit. The industry employs over 500,000 people in North Carolina. 370,000 of them have been laid off. In the hotel industry, 80,000 people are employed. 23,000 have been laid off. In Raleigh alone, 18 hotels have closed, and they're not sure if they're going to open up again. So it's something that's obviously been difficult to come through over the last 8 weeks. Current occupancy rate in the state is anywhere from 12 to 20% on average. And we're running at about 10 to 16 or 17% of occupancy. Normally, we'd be up in the high 70, low 80 right now. You know, talking to the hotels, there's so much going on this spring that they were booked through Memorial Day on the weekends, and now obviously it's pretty wide open. Compounding that is the fact of supply and demand. So not only are we running 85, 90% under occupancy, completion, but we're also having rates of 20 to 30%. Fewer rooms at a much lower rate than what would normally be used. I can tell you from the research and the work I'm doing with Visit NC, they have, quote unquote, written off the summer already. They just don't see it bouncing back. Now, folks will travel, but not from a marketing standpoint. We're not going to go promote them to start traveling. It's going to be really triggered by confidence more than something's being opened up. I know you all aren't going to be able to read this very well, but we did give us a word that explains from a consumer standpoint what you're thinking and feeling about travel. And I guess this is probably reversed, but scared, you can see how big that word is. That's the dominant word right now. And it's going to be. So it's going to take some time to get out of this, but we're also not at the bottom of it yet. If you look at 9/11 and 2008 as the last two drops in hospitality industry, it takes twice as long to come out as it does to get to the bottom of the well. So, for instance, in 2008, it took 9 months to get to the bottom of the well. It took 38 months to get out. So with North Carolina Travel and Tourism saying the summer's kind of shot, folks, maybe August, September, if you take that 2 times equation, we're looking at next May or June before we start to come back to something of semblance of a normal market within the hospitality industry. So it's a challenge, and you're not going to read this very well either. But this is the dip in 2001. It's the dip in 2008. 2001, 2008. that's now. So we're also running at about 3 times as deep of a well from a bottom of the market coming out. So we've got a ways to go, and that doesn't include having a vaccine. So it's a challenging time. To address this, the state and other communities are doing a number of things to help ease the financial burden of hotels and other businesses. As you know, the state and federal tax have suspended income tax. They're delaying that. There's delays in sales tax as well as any penalties that go with that. So we're trying to take a look at beyond that, what can we do? As we do that, let me take a step back and just take 30 seconds to talk about the hospitality tax, because you may not be aware how it works. There's a 6% tax on all hotel rooms in Scotland County, and that becomes the source of our revenue. There's no other revenue that TDA has, with no property tax, no sales tax. It's the hospitality tax, the 6%. And that's used to market Scotland County, to market our hotels, to market our events. Both generally, we do things with TripAdvisor, Bragg, and some other things, and then specifically with our events, Copa, Highland Games, those kind of things. That tax is collected on a monthly basis. If it's not paid on time, then penalty fee and interest starts to accrue. Now, what other communities are doing is suspending that hospitality tax going forward, and any associated fees that are taking place. It started out with most of the large communities. Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, Wake, Asheville was early on. In South Carolina, Charleston and Columbia are driving it. But now other communities are doing that as well. I was on a call a week and a half ago now, and we asked folks, with residents, we asked folks what communities are suspending their hospitality tax. And it was, we're about to do it. So it's really taken a hold to the point that in South Carolina, their legislatures are considering suspending the tax universally across the state. But we're in North Carolina, we're doing it community by community in order to see what we can do. Basically what that allows, suspending of that tax, so collected by the bank, the hotels, but it's not sent into the county. So they use it as sort of a short-term bridge loan to help operating costs and payment of employees for their salaries and whatnot. What we're asking the board tonight, and it has to be approved at the local level by county commissioners, is to suspend that tax and interest and any fees that would involve until next February. So that allows folks the banks to use that money for the rest of this fiscal year, if they have that as a short-term loan. The second request that I'm making is to actually halt the tax completely for the first 4 months of fiscal 2021. I talked about the downward spiral that we're in, and it's going to take a while to get out. Delaying or halting the tax for the first 4 months allows the hotels to get out of that trench and start to get some semblance of normalcy. If you go back into my example of how they have a 6% tax, by suspending that allows them to get a higher rate. We know that the room rates are now 20 to 30% lower. They can actually get a little bit higher rate from the end users. There's no increase, but the tax, since it's halted, that 6% can add it on. So again, it's a way of generating more dollars for the hotels as they try to come out of this. Now the TDA, the Tourism Development Authority, we're fortunate that we have the funds available to support this and other efforts. The hotels obviously support us, and we want to support them at this point in time. We do so in a fiscally respectful manner. Some may look at this as a benefit to them. It's actually a benefit to the PDA. If a hotel goes out of business, like those 18 hotels in Raleigh, that's lost tax going forward, lost hospitality tax, lost property tax. So whatever we can do is valuable to keep them going. Now we've developed our budget for fiscal 2021, and we're projecting a 35% decline in our income, in our revenue stream. If I look at occupancy now, we're, as I said, about 15% on average. We are hoping to get to 40% by the end of this year, calendar year, and maybe to 60% by the end of next fiscal. So we're looking at about 35% decline. However, we balanced our budget by cutting costs by about 35% as well. Most of those cuts are going to come from just general operations, some general marketing opportunities that we do. What we wanted to do was protect the partners that we have in the community, the festivals, the sites and whatnot, the Kumbas, the Highland Games, the ball tournaments that Brian Graham puts on. We'll be able to help support those folks. We're not going to do it 100% given this budget. We'll probably provide 80 to 85% of the grant dollars that we have to each of those programs. So while the TDA and the hotels are dropping their income and dropping the revenue, 85% right now at hotels, we're not going to pass that on to our grant partners. We're able to balance our budget and still provide them the support that we want to have. So to summarize, we're looking at two requests. First is to suspend the hospitality tax from now to the end of the fiscal, have that due in February, and during that period of time, the hotels would not incur any kind of interest rate or penalty. The other thing is to halt the tax completely the first 4 months of fiscal 2021. And the reason we're changing that at this point, by North Carolina local government law, we can't halt the tax right now. It has to take place at the beginning of a fiscal year. So that's why folks are suspending it for this fiscal and then halting it as we go forward. Final thing is as we look at our budget, and I've reviewed this with Beth as well, Beth Hobbs, the local government commission requires that organizations such as the TDA have a 15% operating budget to fund balance. So the 15% of our operating budget is in our fund balance. Even with these efforts that we're going to ask you guys to help us with tonight, by the end of next fiscal, we will have 55% of our operating budget still in our fund balance. So we're fortunate, I talked to a lot of other communities, we had enough money in reserve to be able to support our hotel at this point. So, it's an opportunity to help our hotels with their operating costs, including payroll. And I've talked to the hotels, that's what they're going to try to use a lot of this for, is to maintain folks on their payroll. And we can do it in a fiscally responsible manner from the TDA standpoint. So we're requesting those two actions by the county commissioner. It can't be approved by the TDA board. It has to be approved by the county commissioners. I'll take any questions, and I do have some silver lining if you'd like to hear them as we move forward. But that's the request that the TDA has tonight.
All right, is that everybody on board? Any questions?
I can barely hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Any of y'all have any questions for Corey?
I don't have any questions particularly for you, but I have some questions about how this all unfolds, how it works out. The precedent, well, I mean, if you want me to go into it, I will. The precedent that we're going to set, the precedent that we're going to set here on a certain industry, giving the tax, and I'll use his words in effect, alone until February. Well, then where does that stop?
The
restaurant down the street, does those type, that's what I'm seeing out of that. Again, and it's not something the actual hotel's paying. This is guests paying. This is not something they're paying. So if they don't collect it, it ain't gonna be there. I mean, if they need to raise rate, they raise rate. That's how we all operate. So, but I guess the biggest part of it is taking it all the way out to February, when this thing will be way over before February, and probably way before this July to October, but it's not over by the end of the year anyway. So, but I guess we're just setting a precedent. And that precedent we're setting just doesn't sit right. And there's other people out there that's still going to have to collect the sales tax from a customer and pay it on time. But we're going to allow this one industry to subvert that, and in effect, we want interest-free loan to next. So that's my only concern about the precedent of it.
I could only hear a little bit of it, so I'll try to piece together what I think the question is, which is why this industry. I guess looking at it a couple ways. One is this is a sort of self-contained tax they have. The hospitality tax is collected by the hotels and distributed by the TPA then for the fund. we're asking for the suspension until July, and then to not have to pay that until February, simply because the beginning of the year, the end of next year, beginning of the following year is going to be slow, and so it just allows them to recoup that. As I said, we're down and then start to come up. It's just a stage sort of in sync with what we're doing, what the state's doing with sales tax, allowing some delays. The property or the hotel tax for this fiscal will still be collected ultimately. We're delaying that collection until next February. Again, I couldn't hear much of what you were saying. I apologize. The audio is difficult here, but if that's not clearing, reiterate, and I'll try to provide a better response.
I can see I'm thinking, but I'm not hearing any questions.
Well, I understand Tim's concern, and I think it's a valid one. And I'm looking at it a little differently, but I want to think about it because I think there may be a precedent that we don't want to set. But if I understand this correctly, the board of the TDA they're the ones who actually get to use the funds that are created. Okay, and so what they're at here, if they had the ability, they would be the ones that would be saying, we think in order to help our folks, our hoteliers, that we would give them this break. And as far as our concern, our position as far as none of this money is used, it's spent by this board. Okay. So in my mind, they're asking us to let them do what they don't have the ability to do, but we do.
The statute.
The statute would allow us to do that. Now, does that, when the local restaurant comes to us and says, we don't want to collect sales tax for the next 8 months, what are we going to say to them?
Right.
I don't think my answer to that is either Lori or Kevin or Johnson. I don't think we would have any authority to even vote. I think this sort of stands alone with the Congress and being, this commission sanctioned our commission. We're not the only county that's looking at this. Corey, I'm talking about this. This is being looked at across the United States.
But with that thought in mind, has there been any comments, anything in the legislature of them being asked to suspend sales tax?
There has been conversation on delaying payment on or waiving interest and penalties for sales tax collections. Of course, that would take legislative actions, which when they come back in session at some point in time, they may do that. So that has been brought up, but they did say they would not take up that type of issue there in this last session. It was just for the CARES Act. So when they come back, say in July, they may talk about it. Where that will go.
But we wouldn't have any authority to do anything in regard to that.
No, sir.
Anybody else have a comment or a question?
I don't have a question. I would make the motion that we do the two things that have been requested. I am making that as a motion.
We have a motion on the floor to approve of the request from TA. Is there a second?
Second.
We now have a second. So any further discussion?
I'd like to hear more from him if he's.
No, I mean, that's just I think we're just setting the wrong precedent if we do that. I know that's because we can control it. And maybe the answer to me is a shorter period, but I don't think, because it's not something that hotel owner is paying. It's the guest paying. And
Right.
You know, I don't think that there's gonna be enough developed by that hotel to make that so-called loan in between now and February to where it's gonna keep its head above water. So if they're already that short on occupancy, they probably laid the people off already, which we know the results of that with the unemployment program, and as well as the PPP. So if they maintain people, they, you know, so I don't see this saving or burying of a hotel. So
There's just a lot of unknown involved, what's going on, we don't know. All right, so we have a motion and a second, we're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Bob, Betty,
Bob Davis, aye.
okay. Betty,
Aye, but I am having trouble hearing it, but yes, aye.
okay, you voted aye. All right, all those opposed? We have an opposed vote, so the motion carries. Did you get all that?
Can I take 10 seconds before we move on? I want to leave with hopefully some down the road what's happening, a few moments if you haven't. From a longer term standpoint, the research actually may point to some good things in Scotland County from a tourism standpoint. The interest is in getting back to normal. North Carolina's been running ad campaigns about first that last. All the research we're doing now is showing us that people want to get back to what they love, back to the normal, back for comfort food, if you would. And I think that's going to help our festivals as people want to return to doing things they've done in the past and enjoyed in the past. Obviously, drive time is going to be the most important value in how far I go. People don't want to travel long distance. So they're going to do quick drives, day trips, and that's going to replace longer vacations. Again, given our proximity to Charlotte, to Raleigh, to Wilmington, that'll help. The third thing, we've not researched this yet with Raleigh, we're getting ready to, is that we're obviously a certified retirement community. And a lot of folks are starting to realize that maybe retiring and living in an urban area is not the best idea going forward. So we're starting to hear from folks that obviously being rural, having access to other areas, but having to space that out a little bit is going to help. So it's a difficult time right now. I thank you all for the request we had tonight, and hopefully things turn around. And I will be more than happy to keep you in the loop and report back in person as we go forward.
I've getting a lot of complaints on the
I'm sure I do.
site. I don't know if it's us, or if it's the device.
I'm sure they couldn't hear him.
Maybe
He's trying to hear what he's saying. I don't know if I could hear close to that. I know he's breaking up.
Betty, can you still hear us fine?
I hear the speakers quite well, but I have trouble hearing Carol and some of the commissioners, but I can hear the speakers well,
Betty, can you hear this?
slightly.
It might be the microphone that's causing it. It may be causing a garble in the, try to speak without the microphone, see if you can hear.
That microphone?
Just back off.
Just back off, see.
Betty, can you hear me now?
Your voice, not very well at all.
Hey, this is John, can you hear me?
It's breaking up, and but I'm hearing the speakers, and I can hear you enough to vote. So that's what's important.
All right.
Thank you for that, I agree.
Bob, can you hear us? Bob Davis, can you hear us?
I can hear pretty good, except I have trouble with Kevin once in a while, and Carol is not real clear.
Hey, you get on you. You're the closest, and you're the closest one to the.
That's up.
I'm gonna try another microphone. All right. Our next item is the Child Fatality Prevention Team and the Community Child Protection Team with Carl Rivers and April State. Are both of you on the call?
Hello, can you hear me?
No.
I'm
Okay.
on well. Okay, good evening. I'll begin. Just going to start with a very brief overview of what CFPT does. We review medical examiner reports, death certificates, and other records for deceased county residents under age 18. Our team members come together and form a multidisciplinary team, and we partner with the community child out of DSS to discuss outcomes of services, circumstances surrounding the child's death. The purpose of the team is to identify deficiencies in the delivery of services to children and families by public agencies, making out recommendations for changes that will prevent future child deaths and promote understanding of the causes of child deaths. So our local team and state agencies use our review findings to determine any trends, target prevention strategies, and to identify family and community needs, as well as support community agencies in their service to children and families. So our team is, it consists of appointed representatives of public as well as non-public agencies, the community, and it includes staff from health department, DSS, the school system, community action agency teams such as the Scotland County Domestic Violence and Rape Crisis Center, local mental health agencies, district court judge, medical examiner, local daycare, etc., as well as parents. So the Board of County Commissioners, your job is to appoint a maximum of 5 additional members, and you've done that. Those positions are filled and have been for several years, and to represent our community agencies or the community at large. So our team members are responsible for providing information from the agency records about each child's deaths. The team relies on its members to provide perspective and insight from the vantage point of their agencies and experiences. The team member must sign a confidentiality statement as North Carolina law requires. And we also have to give this report, which we're taking care of now, to provide any suggestions to prevent future child deaths. Our local team submits these review findings to the statewide team coordinator, and they forward these to the North Carolina Child Fatality Task Force. This information is used to form policies, laws, increase public and professional knowledge, as well as an great effort to prevent any future child deaths in Scotland County. So in 2019, our CFPT reviewed 4 child deaths from the calendar year 2018 and identified one system problem and recommendation for future prevention efforts. The cause of death was assault by other and unspecified firearm discharge, unspecified injury of head and neck. The system problem identified is under access to a firearm weapon, particularly gun. The recommendation is to provide educational information to the community about the importance of gun safety. And our proposed action, which we implemented on Saturday, May 18, 2019, from 10 to 2, is to provide gun safety and awareness literature at a suicide awareness and prevention activity. So examples of our activities and accomplishments, we met 5 times in 2019. The subcommittee met 4 times, and that was in the efforts of planning our very first suicide awareness and prevention activity. The individual reports were completed on the child deaths and were forwarded to Brenda Edwards, who is our state coordinator. Myself being the chairperson and Ms. Gwen Clark, the review coordinator for CFPT, attended the local CFPT one-day regional training on April 11, 2019 at Cumberland County DSS. I gave this report to the Board of Health on April 16, 2019, and co-presented with Wendy Stanton from the Community Child Protection Team out of DSS on May 6, 2019. And the activity summary was completed and electronically submitted on April 6th of this year. We work really hard to develop and sponsor our suicide awareness and prevention activity entitled Working Together to Prevent Suicide. Again, that was held in May of 2019 at the Scotland ELC building. And we also had local team members, some of our health department social workers participated in spring outreach on Friday, June 21st, 2019 at Rainbow 66, which included review and distribution of safe educational information with attendees and a demonstration of a pack and play and how it's to be set up correctly. And so although the team has focused now, our health promotional campaign is suicide prevention and awareness, counseling on safe sleep, that will be an ongoing effort. So if anyone has any questions, I am as well having a little trouble hearing you. But at this time, I want to go ahead and turn this over to Ms. April Sneed from DSS.
Thank you, Carla. I believe Carlotta did my whole report. And I just say that because CCPT, which is Child Community Protection, and CFPT really mirror each other in so much as that we have joint meetings. And so like Carlotta said, we had 5 meetings this year. The major difference between fatality team and the protection team is that when the CCPT team comes together, they hear cases from social services of abuse and neglect that we have open at the time. So after confidentiality, of course, is explained, we hear from our team members any activity they've had with the family we're working with that we would not know about. And then recommendations are made for the team for not only anything that the department could offer, but also in the community, what is trends in these neglect and abuse cases. So in 2019, there were 10 cases presented by the Child Protective Services Unit, CCPT. And so that's a piece of the meetings. As Carlotta explained, the second piece of the committee is really about the subcommittees and what we're going to do in the community and what campaigns we're going to target. And so like Carlotta said, during 2019, suicide prevention and awareness was big. With the department, we of course are always going to educate on abuse and neglect and preventing abuse and neglect and identifying risk factors. That's typically during the month of April, it's all year, but in the month of April, that is Child Abuse Awareness Month. And so we really try to do things during that month. The month of November is National Adoption Awareness Month. And we again try to get out there and talk about our recruitment efforts for foster parents and adoptive parents. And again, just tack on more education in the community. So just like Carlotta said, we also have a group of members that need to be voted on by the commissioner. There are certain designated positions that are required, and then there are other positions that are appointed that are filled right now. If there are any questions, we'll be glad to answer those.
Thank you for that report.
Hey, I do have one. April, maybe Carlotta may want to answer this. On your, you had 4 deaths in 2018, and you had the 1 recommendation in regard to the firearm safety. All 4 of those deaths weren't related to firearms, I wouldn't think.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
You said in 2018 there were 4 child deaths. Is that correct?
He asked if they were all related to gun accidents, and I don't think that they were.
But
No. Only one of the 4 deaths was related to that. The other 3, they were different. One was a newborn affected by rupture of membranes. The other was neoplasms and neonatal cardiac failure. And then the 4th was unspecified chronic respiratory / respiratory arrest.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Any more questions? I know that we do need to approve the membership for the two boards of these, teams, child protection, prevention team, child protection team. So, those members, that membership is included in your packet. So I will accept a motion to approve these two boards.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the board. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
I hear you, Betty.
Okay.
You still with us, Bob?
Aye.
Bob said
Motion carries. The board has been approved.
Next item, Laurel Hill Community Center is a continuing item, nothing significantly changed in this. We'll have more discussions about it as we move forward through the budget process.
Can I ask a question just about what it does and it doesn't relate to this? And because I'm here that Ed, we can hear you. Use your mic. Anyway, I just forgot what I was talking about. Oh, it goes to the fund balance. We currently sit at what on the unrestricted fund balance?
Right at 24%.
24%, and that is
Right at 10 million.
Unrestricted.
unrestricted.
Yes.
So that's what I was asking. I'm just,
I cannot hear this.
Tim's question was about the fund balance. Kevin said our fund balance was 24%, and the dollar amount was 10 million unrestricted. So we're gonna get a better update as our budget meeting together. All right, at this time, we are gonna have a report from Kristen Harrison, Health Director, in our Health Department, COVID-19 update.
you're muted, Kristen.
Good evening, Commissioners. As you all have heard, Mr. Greg Wood's report, his was basically the hospital report. So what I'm going to give you is the health department and the state report. So currently in Scotland County, we have 30 cases of coronavirus. However, of the 30 cases, 15 of those cases have recovered. And what we do on the health department side, once someone tests for coronavirus, is entered into our system called NCS, and that's a state system in which all local health departments have access to. And whenever someone tests at a hospital or a provider, if they test and they send those tests to LabCorp, Quest, or either the state lab, it feeds into the state system, which is NCS. And then that's how we receive all of the positive just for Scotland County. We can't see any other counties because we don't have that access. So basically what we do at the health department, we contact each person that is positive for COVID-19. And a lot of times if we don't have good locating information, Donna and myself, we team up, we go out to the person's house because we have to make sure that they're safe, make sure, check on their well-being. And basically, Donna and I, we had to go out on one of our patients and just make sure that his well-being he was okay, because we couldn't get in contact with him via the phone. And so we were able to locate that individual. So we make contact with all of our individuals, and and that's called contact tracing. And I know you all have heard of contact tracing in the news. That's what your local health departments, CD people, that's what we do. we do contact tracing on every patient here in Scotland County who has tested positive. And then not only do we do contact tracing on them, we also find who they've been in contact with, and we notify them of the exposure. Now, because testing, of course, the state has now implemented increasing testing, but before, the only thing we could do with those patients, if they're not experiencing like aggressive symptoms, then we would just tell them to go home and quarantine, stay home, and we make sure they stay home, quarantine for 14 days. But now, since the state has, Governor Cooper, as of today, he signed 2 bills, which were COVID-19 bills. As you know, President Trump, he signed a bill. Well, he signed money. It was $484 billion stimulus package. Well, the state of North Carolina just received their part of that money. And Governor Cooper, he signed 2 bills on today. And it was State Bill 704 and House Bill 1043. And with House Bill 1043, that was our stimulus packet, the CARES Act for Scotland, for the state of North Carolina. And Scotland County, they received their part of that. And this bill affects our schools, our local health departments, our hospitals, and other agencies. We will all receive some monies from, and emergency management, we all receive some monies from this bill to help fight COVID-19. And so with the state, they have now employed, they're trying to find 250 contact tracers, because although Scotland County, we're not seeing a great increase, that's awesome. But if you notice, the counties around us, they are increasing in numbers. Do we expect it to fall over or come over here to Scotland County? It may. We're hoping that it don't, but hey, if it does, we're going to be ready. And we have nurses in the health department who can do contact tracing along with Donna and myself. And if we need help with those 250 contact tracers, in which will be employed with the state of North Carolina, all we have to do is send in a request through our Health Directors Association, and we can get those contact tracers to come here and help us in Scotland County if needed. But right now we don't need it. We're keeping up with the demands as of right now. And another thing, of course, you all have heard that the governor, he's looking to loosen some of the restrictions, and there are 3 phases to this. So the first phase, it really wouldn't change much as what we're doing now, and he's supposed to talk more in detail and address the state either tomorrow or Wednesday. Sorry, getting my days mixed up. So we'll know more of how phase 1 will look once he addressed the state on that. But as of right now, we are working tirelessly hard, and we're receiving questions from all over. We receive questions from the school system. We help them out a lot because, as you know, they're still providing meals, and that is high risk. But they are using masks and they're using gloves whenever they go out. And we also let them know, don't go into the house, but only, meet the kids at the bus stop and hand them their lunches. And if they give them like work packets, because some of the kids may not have access to the internet, so they're still passing out work packets. So we do give directives to even the prison system. We've had positives in the prison system here in Scotland Correctional, and we help the warden, to try to navigate through this, because it is new territory. It's new territory for us. It's new territory for other people. And myself and other health directors, we've been in contact with each other whenever we see an outbreak in either our county or neighboring counties. We get together on a Zoom call just like this, and we talk things out. We help each other with different strategies, because that's what we're supposed to do. We help one another, because as you see with Robeson County, they have 281 cases right now. Well, we know that's coming from the poultry plants there. And we also have citizens in Scotland County who's affected by those poultry plants, the outbreaks there. We do have cases here from those poultry plants. We're also seeing outbreaks in manufacturing companies, and that's up in Richmond County. And also we've seen some at another poultry plant, Purdue. That was in the news. We have patients there, patients here from those plants as well. So we as health directors, we're trying to put things in place to help not only Scotland County, but their county as well. Because we know if we help take care of each other's counties, we can kind of mitigate the numbers in the counties. And that's pretty much what we're doing here in Scotland County, just making sure we get the word out. We also put PSAs out on the radio, on Facebook. We're using WLNC, going to the radios and talking to them. And we know that a lot of the young people, they listen to Foxy 99. So we use some of our COVID money to buy ads for Foxy 99 and just letting people know education about this virus is the key, because it is a new virus, it's a novel virus, and anyone that says they know about this virus, I'm kind of skeptical of that, because it's changing all the time. The information that we receive today, in about 10-15 minutes, we're getting new directives from the state health department. Dr. Mandy Cohen, she's sending out new stuff all the time, and we're trying to educate ourselves so that we can educate others and to pass that information on. So, and that one death that was at Scotland Hospital is not a Scotland County resident. So you will not see a death for Scotland County. So we only have 30 cases, and 15 of those 30 have recovered. Any questions?
I'd like to say, Ms. Patterson,
yes,
I heard quite a bit about you on the radio, and the people really appreciate the information that you gave them. So thank you for your broadcast on the radio. And I'd like to know the steps. If a person is having symptoms, they first contact the doctor. Is that the way it should be?
Yes, ma'am. They have to contact their doctor first.
And the next,
sorry.
It's the doctor that makes the request, right?
It's the doctor that makes the decision whether they test or not.
Okay, thank you.
And everybody, what people need to know is everyone, they're not receiving tests. And with this new money that the governor has in House Bill 1043, it's going to actually allow for more testing, because they know the virus is out there. It just hadn't been enough tests around to actually perform the test. We didn't have enough money. We didn't have enough resources. So with that money, there should be more resources, and you'll see more testing coming.
And the numbers probably rise as we see more tests, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Kristen, that was very informative. Thank you. I know you're working hard, and we appreciate everything that you're doing and your staff.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so much. Yeah, have a good one.
All right, up next is Mark Ward, Economic Development Director. Are you with us, Mark?
He may not be on with us.
No, that's true, yeah.
But I'm on that meeting with him, and basically what we were going to say is that we've taken the direction of what y'all have done and asked us to do, and now we're trying to find someone to actually put that together, to bring samples, hopefully at the end of May, if that's your budget. So that's what his update was going to be.
That's the update. All right.
I like
The next item is boards and committee appointments. This month we have to make reappointments to the ABC Commission Mr. Richard Swan and Mr. Bob Davis, are up for reappointment, so I'll make a motion to appoint these two individuals, to reappoint these two individuals to the ABC Commission.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
I just want to ask a question. It's not, I'm not against it at all. And it's directed, is this a commissioner seat on the ABC or is this just a normal? And I'm talking about Bob's. Because I'm going to ask Bob, this is something you want to keep doing past December, I assume. So are we going to be able to do that with this appointment or do we need to designate it?
It is, it is a commission seat, is that right, Jason?
I don't know. Mine doesn't say what.
Category?
It doesn't say what category.
I'm drawing from memory, Tim, that's a good question.
Bob, they do the answer.
Bob, do you know if your membership on the ABC Commission is as a commissioner appointment or are you a citizen appointment?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm having trouble.
Okay, Bob, the question to you, serving on the ABC Commission, are you there as a commissioner appointee or are you there as a citizen?
I can't make out what you're saying.
Bob, this is Win. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you all right.
Okay, the question is, you are currently on the ABC board. And we are.
Yes, sir.
We're
I'm
considering.
currently the chair. I'm currently the chair of the ABC board.
Are you in that position? Is that seat that you're sitting in one that is reserved for a commissioner?
No, sir.
So, and you're willing to continue that on after December is what I'm trying to assume. I'm trying to make it where you can. I just wanted to find out.
And I'm going to ask this question because I don't know. Is there one of the seats on the board strictly for a commissioner?
I don't believe there
No,
is.
there's not.
Well, then, so he'll serve. Okay, that's good.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
Did that make sense what I was trying to do?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Good question.
Yeah. All right, so we do have a motion and a second to appoint Ms. Swan and Mr. Davis to the ABC Commission. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I feel like I'm screwing.
Bob, did you vote on that? And
No, I did not.
you going to vote yes or no against yourself?
But if I need to vote on it, I'll vote yea.
How about Betty?
Yay.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
I'm screaming.
You can hear it good there. I just don't, I don't think it likes you for some reason, or the angle or something. But you can hear you coming through the speaker.
Who's the other member of the board?
No,
Oh,
I can't remember his name.
wait a minute.
Robert?
Grace?
Yeah, he's the man.
I would tell you that all my.
That's okay. I was wrong question. No, you don't need to get that.
Well, I have something I want to bring up, but I'm not sure I'm going to be heard. I'm having trouble remembering when we did this last, but I think it was around 2014 or 15. For a reason, we gave our employees an extra day of paid leave over the Memorial Day weekend. So it came to me as a request to reconsider that, to just say to our employees, the majority of them are frontline workers. And they have had to face the challenge of working during this pandemic from day one. Many are working from home. That's a new challenge for them, coming in one day a week. We know what has happened to DSS, that situation. Of course, we have our EMS and our law enforcement that are definitely frontline workers. I discussed it with Kevin, and that is just to grant the Friday before Memorial Day as a paid vacation, with essential workers being granted 8 hours of vacation pay. And we would have to take action on this if we wanted to do it, to just say thank you to our county employees for what they're doing and what they're going to have to continue to do for a while longer.
So they already get the 25th off.
They get that Monday off, yes,
Yes, you're ready for Friday. 4 day week. Fine. I'll make a motion.
Tim has made a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, any discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Betty?
I couldn't hear the question.
Okay, the question is, maybe you try with it.
Carolyn, could you have somebody else to say it, because your voice is the one I can hear less.
Benny, the motion was that we would grant Scotland County employees an extra day of vacation the Friday before the Memorial Day weekend. And is a way of saying thank you for, just thank you for their service, period, but particularly in a difficult time. Motion was made and seconded, and everybody has voted except for you.
Okay, yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Motion carries.
You broke the tie.
Say, right, get that in.
I'm going to this one day. 20. The reason I asked that is kind of a joke. You give it, they wouldn't know where to go.
It's the weekend of the 22nd. It's the weekend of the 22nd.
Yeah.
Get that steak in your own food market.
I already done with that. Barbecue.
I don't have a grill.
Okay, the next item, we did have conversations with departments, last Friday, talking about.
We had a conversation last Friday talking with the departments, looking about the possibility or when we start reopening, dovetailing that in with the governor's reopening plan. We didn't discuss the potential time frame, but instead of actually selecting actual dates, because we'll accept them when they happen, we just looked at it. With phase one reopening, which is still, it does open some non-essential businesses that were not specifically closed. But during that phase one, which would probably be 2 weeks at the earliest, I would not change how county facilities, county offices are operated at this point in time. We will still be open by appointment only, most of it being worked by telephone, email, or virtual as much as possible. When we look at going into phase two, that's when we will look to move back into having offices back open. We will still have social distancing in place. We will have more physical barriers put up and installed that would be between county employees and the public wherever practical. And part of it is our waiting rooms. We're intentionally going to probably remove a bunch of furniture in waiting rooms just to decrease the occupancy there. There are going to be some areas that we're not necessarily looking to open immediately. Now, what this means, once we have phase one open up, like the Morgan complex, ball fields and everything else would be open, though people are still using them. Our parks will be open, but Scotland Yard or the Dragon Park will remain closed. We will look at it as we move into phase two. Scotland Place will probably not it may be open, but I don't know when we're going to reestablish services in Scotland Place. That will probably be later on, as long as the state is still encouraging at-risk seniors to stay home. We don't want to encourage them to come to an assembly place when the state is telling them to stay home. Also, we have youth athletics that are scheduled to start soon. At this point in time, we have no specific schedule if they're going to start this summer. It's, you know, it's one thing getting 15 kids out playing in a park practicing, but then you get them all together in one spot where their families are going to come and spectate. That's going to create your assembly issues there. So we are going to be looking to reopen. We are going to be moving slowly as we move forward. And also at this point in time, I believe most of our employees should have been offered face coverings. So we will be looking at, as we go ahead, when we have those face-to-face interactions again, it's not specifically, we are not specifically requiring the face coverings, but we are making sure that they are available to county employees. So we're going to continue to encourage the distancing and everything else, and we are not specifically stopping the work from home at this point in time either. There are going to be a number of things that we're looking at into. We're going to take advantage of this as we can and change how we do things moving forward. Communication tower, the construction is, well, the tower itself is obviously complete. The antennas, most of them are being put on. Actually, Highway Patrol has their 8-foot microwave dish out there ready to be installed. So they're going to be putting that in. A lot of the radio equipment is on hand. We are now scheduling with the vendors to come in and do installation. We expect sooner, but we are looking to have our cutover by the end of May. Once the radio equipment is actually installed, then we will start working with the different agencies in scheduling their cutoff. At some point in time, we will work it to avoid this, but we will plan on them going dead communications for a period of time. The Sneads Grove convenience site has started. Construction is underway. It started April 7th. We did do a 7-day delay because of weather. Just at the end of May, we gave an extension to avoid having to supplement the soils to get the appropriate compactions for the materials there. But the 90-day period for construction and turnover will end the first part of July. And our goal is to operate, open up the facility and have it operational in July. Also looking for a potential budget meeting, May 26th, 27th, or 28th, one of those days. And just with the conversations that I've had, I'm actually not specifically asking you to set a budget meeting tonight, but those are the dates that we're looking at. We will go off and contact you and kind of poll and figure it out. And we want to do this first. My request is tonight that you actually simply adjourn this meeting. So we will have a special meeting for that. With the stay-at-home orders potentially expiring, there was just too much uncertainty to go off and activate. So we figured it would be easier to do this, and it's not difficult to have a special meeting for a budget work session. And that is all I have.
Okay.
Any day with the 28th. So there you go.
All right. Any news from our commissioner, John?
Don't have it.
Jim?
I just say if you get a chance to join that call every day for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you're pretty good in rolling. So it's got a really good executive summary every day, that thing has some good information.
Yeah.
Everything? I'm good. Okay. All right, if we have I have nothing, at this point I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Mark. They're not in front of me, they're not thinking. Bob, do you have any questions or comments?
Bob?
Bob, you with us? You may have left. Betty, are you still with us?
No, I don't have any comments.
Okay, thank you. Bob, do you have any comments?
No, I'm still good. I got a lot, but I believe I'll save them till our regular meeting.
Okay, all right. Having heard the comments from Commissioner now, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
We're not gonna do it.
Adjourn.
So
Yes, sir.
So moved.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Everyone agrees, we are adjourned.
You want to turn this off?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so. This conference is no longer being recorded.
Because you were coming towards that.
Well, and
I'm curious, and of course, her voice is higher.